that New York is going to get its first ever Muslim mayor. And although in theory that shouldn't be a problem, we only have to look at what's happened with Sadiq Khan in London over the last 3 terms to see that it's a worrying possibility. And it's almost, a decided result.
Because actually the kind of poorer parts of New York, which have high levels of ethnic minorities, they didn't vote for him so much, but it's kind of wealthy white women actually that voted for him, graduates, that just, as soon as someone waves a Palestine flag or says gender-affirming care, he's got their vote. Classrooms are being called like the Windrush classroom or the Windrush house and all of this. And as you say, I don't entirely understand what this is about. They go on about how much this generation contributed. Keir Starmer said how they came here, they became nurses and teachers and construction workers. And you think, so they got jobs?
Hello and welcome to Newspeak, our weekly look at the news agenda. I'm Peter Whittle. Pleased to be back after a bit of a break recently, which has been very, very well handled by Amy. Amy, hasn't it?
Yeah,
thank you very much for that. Really great. Of course, I'm joined by Amy Gallagher, who obviously is a regular here on the channel, and also by a new guest, that is Peter Lloyd, journalist and Sunday Times best-selling author. Good to see you, Peter.
Thanks for the nice intro.
And also you've just done for us a sort of heresies or a mini documentary about your hometown, haven't you?
That's right, my beloved native Liverpool I've done a report on, which unfortunately is in the process of being culturally enriched.
All right, okay.
So, but it was a wonderful time. It was a great documentary, and I'm really happy with it. So it should be coming out in the next few weeks.
Yes, exactly. Well, we'll give people notice of that. But thanks for joining us today. A couple of things. Before we talk about the week's news, 2 things. First of all, this might interest you. Actually, we're going to be doing a new programme soon. It's kind of going to be a debate. Might be monthly, it might be bi-monthly, but we're not quite certain yet. But the first one is being recorded on the 10th of July, and the subject under debate, the NCF debate, will be, is London over or not? Because, there's been quite a bit of stuff in social media about this recently between Matt Goodwin and Fraser Nelson. And, it's one of those questions which takes in a lot more than just the title suggests. So if you want to come along, because we want to have a small audience, please do get in touch, won't you, via contact@newcultureforum.org.uk. That is on the 10th of July, a Thursday. Now, also, and I'm going to whip through them because there are so many, our locals are just going through the roof. I'm pleased to say our locals, NCF locals events. There are so many, and we always give a rundown, but I'm aware that, it tends to go on a bit. But here we go, standing up for the rest here of June. Right, so basically, long story short, Edinburgh, June 28th, June 30th, West London, meet up, and on June 32, book club, NCF book club meeting. In July, Southampton on the 1st of July. On the 3rd of July, Cambridge event, which is also a discussion about the future of the Tory party. On the 5th of July, Manchester afternoon meetup. On the 8th in Brighton. On the 9th in Cambridge. 12th, Southampton. Again on the 12th in Carlisle. 13th, Birmingham. 15th, Newcastle. 16th, London North. And then 31st of July, London South East event. That will be with Philip Kisley. I sped through them there. If you heard your city come out, then please do get in touch if you want to go. It is to locals@newcultureforum.org.uk. All right?
Peter, I didn't quite catch that. Could you just run through that list again, please?
Yeah, no. Yes. Honestly, it's a thing. Because I understand how, people don't want to hear lists and everything. But this channel has been crucial in actually getting these people together, and making connections. No one else does it, but I won't this time anyway.
I'm only seeing.
Okay, right, for that you're going to start off. interesting. It looks, does it not, if you can give us background, Peter, as though New York is going to get its very own Sadiq Khan. Is that right?
It is unfortunately true. Yeah, the beautiful Big Apple could soon be rotten to the core, thanks to a man called Zorad Mamdani, which is a name that just trips off the tongue. Your viewers may not be aware of him because he's relatively new on the scene, but he's just won the Democratic primary for the New York mayoral elections.
When is this happening, by the way?
So the election actually happens in November,
Oh, right,
but
okay.
it's already pretty much a shoo-in that he's going to win. And when that happens, it means that New York is going to get its first ever Muslim mayor. And although in theory that shouldn't be a problem, we only have to look at what's happened with Sadiq Khan in London over the last 3 terms to see that it's a worrying possibility. And it's almost, a decided result. It's almost certain that
Because
it's
New
going
York's
to
a
win.
solid Democrat, isn't it?
Because it's solidly Democrat, and because the Republican nominee has previously ran for mayor of New York and has lost, doesn't really have a particularly good following, doesn't really have a media profile, whereas this Democrat guy, he has very big social media following and is very, very popular, unsurprisingly, with Muslim voters of New York.
Of which, what kind of numbers are we talking about there? Do you know, how big is the Muslim voting bloc?
Well, that's a good question. And this is what's really interesting about this, is the fact that New York could likely elect a Muslim mayor within 25 years of 9/11. That
Yes,
to me is
yeah,
just
yeah.
astonishing.
Yeah.
But then again, when you look at the numbers, it's not quite surprising. So back in 2001, there were roughly around 400,000 Muslims in New York. Now, 20 years later, it's 1.5 million.
1.5? Really? And is that is it the 5 boroughs?
It's the 5 boroughs, yeah, it's the 5 boroughs. But obviously, this is more evidence that people are voting along sectarian lines and that Western politics is becoming more tribal. And it poses huge problems, namely for the Jewish population. The Jewish population of New York is the biggest Jewish community outside of Israel. So it's very worrying for them, but also it's worrying for the West on a broader scale, because when you have a role like the mayor of New York, it's very high profile. It's often considered to be like the foundation of a presidential campaign.
Yes.
So what we're really looking at now is potentially America's first Muslim president. And that will be a game changer.
Had you heard of him?
No, I hadn't heard of him at all. He seems to have come out of nowhere.
This week, basically,
Yeah.
I would say. But what do we kind of know about him? What is he?
Well, as Peter was saying, he's a Muslim. He's very to the left. He's kind of in that AOC kind of tribe.
Oh, this is the Alexandra Cortez.
Yeah, that he's very, very woke. He describes himself as a communist, I think. Some of his policy points are that he wants to invest £65 million into gender-affirming care for children in New York. He's seen as the anti-Zionist candidate in that he's very pro-Palestine.
Are we talking anti-Zionism here, or are we what?
Well, indeed. People have said that he said some comments which are anti-Semitic. He said things like globalise the Intifada and all of these kind of to the river, to the sea and all of that kind of stuff. So, and as you say, there's a big Jewish population in New York, so it's very divisive. He wants the city to take control of the supermarket, so he really wants to, seize control of the means of production and all of that thing. It's difficult to know how serious he is in terms of his communist kind of beliefs, but he is very kind of woke, far to the left. I don't know if he'll be able to implement any of those policies, but his campaign was run on a kind of campaign of just a bit like, it's similar to vein to Kamala Harris, in that it was all about joy and the joy of kind of being on the left and how wonderful it is. And he kind of went on vibes a bit and memes, and it's sort of everyone. I think he got a large proportion of the kind of white liberal vote in New York, which is very interesting, because actually the kind of poorer parts of New York, which have high levels of ethnic minorities, they didn't vote for him so much, but it's kind of wealthy white women actually that voted for him, graduates, that just, as soon as someone waves a Palestine flag or says gender affirming care, he's got their vote, and they don't think about the seriousness of what this man could do to New York and how he could make certain groups feel. And very worrying. And as you say, it looks like this could be the direction the Democratic Party are going in. Most of us thought, well, they might learn their lessons from Kamala Harris and put up more serious candidates, but it seems as though the far left might be having their way with the Democratic Party.
He's absolutely a hardcore socialist. I mean, if you look at his history, he was educated at Bowdoin College, which is a very liberal, very expensive arts college in Massachusetts. While he was there, he studied Black studies.
Right.
Like, who knew that was even a thing? When was that an academic principle? My goodness. So that's his academic qualifications. He then worked as a hip-hop producer, which is laughable. And then he was elected to the New York Assembly in 2020. But even when he was at college, he was pushing this anti-Israel agenda.
Right.
And he was pushing it again in the Assembly. Every institution he's ever been part of, he's been pushing this anti-Israel agenda, which is basically boycott and divest. Because he opposes the state of Israel. And that is, I mean, to me, that's just staggering. He's even said on record that if Netanyahu entered America, he would arrest him.
Really?
Even though there's no arrest warrant for Netanyahu. He's already said that. And this is a prime example of, ideally, his religion shouldn't come into it, but this is clearly an example of his religion influencing his politics.
Hello, please excuse this brief interruption, but I'd be really grateful if you could please hit the subscribe button and subscribe to our channel. Our mission is vitally important, and we must grow this channel to ensure that our content reaches the biggest possible audience. The best way to do this is for you to subscribe. It's totally free. And in addition to subscribing, if you're able to donate or join our membership scheme, please click on the link in the description or visit our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. We've got great plans ahead, but we can't do it without your support. From only £4 per month, you'll receive a range of perks and benefits, including exclusive content. Thank you. The thing is, you see, I mean, I think you made the point, is that I always used to argue this with Sadiq Khan here, and people would say, conservatives would say to you, ordinary people would say, I don't get it. No one I know likes him. How he's such a terrible mayor. How come he's being, re-elected second, third time? The fact is that people are voting on as you put it, sectarian lines, cultural lines, we used to call it. Essentially, it doesn't matter that he's rubbish on knife crime. It doesn't matter what this guy really thinks about, gender affirming or not. It's what he represents, which is he represents an ethnic, sort of anti-white, I would say, sort of coalition, really.
Yeah, and people are voting along those tribal lines. But as I said, a lot of white people vote for this. It's like, Turkey's voting for Christmas. It's very bizarre. And women as well. And of course, there's issues around crime and knife crime here in London. And it's very interesting that it does seem to be, it's usually wealthier women, but in both New York and here, that vote for these kind of candidates, even though it's not in their interest to, but they're so shielded from the realities, and they're often university educated. That's a big divide as well, that it's the university educated where they get all of these ideas, kind of radical ideas, that they then vote for these candidates. And you see there's been a lot of celebrities, a lot of influencers and famous film stars pushing for this guy suddenly out of nowhere. And it's just that kind of social media culture of hashtag Palestine, hashtag, transgender, and that's it. And you just think, gosh, this is bare minimum, for a kind of political discourse, but that's the way it is.
Has he? You say he's got celebrity, endorsement now. Does anyone spring to mind?
So one is the baleful Cynthia Nixon.
Oh, right, from Sex and the City.
Right. And she posted a video earlier today saying how thoroughly excited she is to be voting for him. It's like, I'm sorry, have you read his policies?
Yeah.
He literally believes in defunding the police, closing down prisons. He wants to dismantle the Electoral College. He believes in reparations for black people. I I just find it astonishing. But then, of course, what you have to realize is that this is all a status symbol. Believing in these luxury views is considered acceptable, So that's where we're at, unfortunately.
I think,
Cynthia Nixon, I think she's got a transgender daughter or son or daughter, yeah. So she's really in.
Yeah,
she's in deep.
Yeah.
I think, what is really, sobering is that the point you make about 9/11, actually, that less than a quarter century has gone by, and now New York is going to have a Muslim.
Staggering.
Do you remember that after 9/11, a while after 9/11, there was this, proposal to put a mosque, it was like a mosque and a madrasa and all of that, right in the shadow of the Twin Towers. And do you know what happened to that? It actually wasn't allowed in the end.
Oh, good.
But this guy, as you say, I know it's a different thing, it's an election, but this guy is he's a shoe-in, isn't he? I mean,
almost.
Do we even know who is the Republican standing?
It's a guy called Curtis Silver.
Never heard.
Who is a complete unknown. Like I said earlier, he's previously ran for mayor of New York and lost spectacularly. He's got no media profile. He's got no real following. He's got no social media engagement. He's got no celebrity endorsements. He's basically a non-entity. And New York is so left-wing that a Republican mayor would never be elected anyway.
Yeah. London's very, very much in going that same way, isn't it?
But you would have hoped that maybe New Yorkers would have learned the lesson from London and seen its decline over the last few years. And this is what's really unfortunate, is that New Yorkers who pay a lot of tax will not be having the daily issues that they need addressed. So, crime or subway cleanliness or effectiveness of the trains or whatever else. None of these issues are going to be addressed as a primary concern, because all he's interested in is Palestine and Israel.
Yeah.
So it's a shame. It's a shame for everyday people who have genuine concerns.
Yes, exactly. You know New York pretty well, don't you?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time.
I mean, I have to say, it's changes. It goes backwards and forwards. But I remember, it went from being, when I first went in the 80s, where you did not, women did not wear jewellery and stuff in, street. Then it became really super safe, went right down the chart. But now it's going back up, isn't it?
Right, and that's all linked to policy. The reason it became safer and cleaner and nicer is because of Giuliani. His broken window policy, which is now famous as a blueprint for how to run a successful city. And then, of course, what happened is the Liberals got back into power and they implemented all of these lax policies, and the place has become a bit of a dystopia, really. I mean, the last time I was there, this sounds very vulgar, but I can remember seeing what was clearly a migrant urinating in the street. There was the smell of marijuana was everywhere. You had people selling, ephemera on, African art on stall tables in the street. And this is down Fifth Avenue, which is one of the wealthiest streets in the world. I mean, it's absolutely appalling that what is allowed to happen there. And yet, the left-wing liberal mind virus has taken a bigger hold than COVID,
Well, the mind virus pretty much... Actually, the liberal mind virus dictates our agenda every week here on the show, actually, I think.
It's a pandemic.
It is actually... It does. It sort of sets the questions we're going to talk about, including this next one, which is apparently, Amy, right, we owe everything.
I know.
We owe everything to the Windrush generation. That's Windrush, the actual ship docking. The anniversary was this week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so Keir Starmer was up on his hind legs, wasn't he? What was it? What was the gist of what they were saying?
Yeah, it's the 77th anniversary of Windrush boat sailing over to our country. He led this kind of speech about how, as you say, how we owe so much to the Windrush generation. He set up a commission for over £1 million to go towards advocacy towards the Windrush generation. I don't even know what that would involve. And they've got their own commissioner as well. And he was talking, as you say, about how much they have. It's almost become a bit fetishistic, like the way we talk about Windrush now. Like there's a statue for them in Waterloo Station.
Yep.
We've now got the Windrush line on the trains.
Yep.
And I've been hearing people saying how in schools and various institutions, classrooms are being called like the Windrush classroom or the Windrush house and all of this. And as you say, I don't entirely understand what this is about. They go on about how much this generation contributed. Keir Starmer said how they came here, they became nurses and teachers and construction workers. And you think, so they got jobs, which is what you'd expect them to do.
Yes,
I mean, that's what we all do. We all contribute to society by getting jobs and paying taxes. You know, this great contribution is that people talk as though it's like, you know, earth-shattering, that there was like this amazing innovation or, you know, kind of the contribution was overwhelming. Actually, this generation is less than 1% of the population. And they just did what everyone else did, is that they got jobs and got on with it. And that was that. And it's interesting that the language they're used, because they're now shifting from saying they contributed, which I would say, yes, they did contribute, but they contributed in the bare minimal way that you'd expect. And now they're saying that this generation built Britain. Yes. Like that they built modern Britain. And you think, what do you mean by built? Because didn't we all build modern Britain? And obviously, you know, if you're talking about the actual buildings, that's historical, and they didn't build Britain. And what I think it's very interesting, because if you're making a claim that a group built the country, if you've built something, you kind of own it, right? If you build a house or you build a business, it's yours. And so there is this encroachment. I would say it's almost like a colonisation of saying that this is ours. It's like, you know, we are more, we've contributed more than any other group, which they haven't. You know, they've not contributed any more than the indigenous population, nowhere near as much. But there is this weird kind of almost rewriting of history. Like history's very modern now, and it's just because they've contributed something in the last 70 years that's now kind of part of our national history. And you think, well, no, it's not actually. You know, the country was built over centuries or even millennia, and actually there's just a group of people that came here and did what you'd expect them to do, is they built lives here and got jobs, and there's nothing particularly remarkable about that. And the way it's being pushed by the culture, you know, you sort of think, what are they going on about? It's bizarre.
I find it, I mean, I agree with all of that. You might remember that there was actually a coin produced by Rishi Sunak when he was Chancellor. It said diversity, much bolder than that, diversity built Britain, i.e. full stop, like built Britain. A complete sort of untruth. It's just fiction. It's complete fiction made its way onto the coinage. But don't you get, I mean, I find that with this, I find that it's an insult to what you might, generations.
It's so insulting. Although I must say, I've had great fun with this on X. I
I
really have. I mean, it's been the gift that keeps on giving. I've been posting pictures of like the pyramids and the Great Wall of China, you know, and Stonehenge, saying, thank God the Windrush migrants were here to build this. I think this is some of the greatest hits, you know. They really did a good job on these things. But you're so right. It's really insulting to the people who literally did build this country. I mean, I suppose you could go back into early history and say, well, you know, you could credit the Anglo-Saxons and then the Normans. But in reality, if we're talking about the last couple of 100 years, it was white, working-class men who built this country, and especially London. You look at the tube line, this extensive, iconic network, which transformed London. That was built by white, working-class men. London didn't have a sewage system until the 1850s. That was also built literally by white working class men, not African migrants. And that's not to say anything bad about African migrants, but they didn't build the city. I mean, you know, the Palace of Westminster, that was built by white working class men. Heathrow Airport opened 2 years before Windrush arrived. That was built by white working class men. It's insulting to the hard work and the legacy that these men have provided us for it to be rewritten. And I know it's a cliche to kind of talk about Orwell, but he was right. You know, in 1984, when he was saying, like, you know, every record has been destroyed, every book has been rewritten. That is true, you know. And we have the leader of this country rewriting history to make it politically correct even if it insults the people that did the hard work. I think that is just so insulting and
yeah, I mean,
unforgivable.
I'd agree, and it's also sort of self-denying, isn't it? It's just denying. It's like self-loathing and self-denial. I mean, you know, insulting this particular example. Well, actually, if you go further than that, the whole thing is this. Britain's always been a land of migrants, right? This is the other thing. Is that this is a kind of cliche that they could feel still confident enough to come out with. When you leave X, this is my problem. You see, on X, they get a bit of a battering, those things. But when you leave that, there are people, older people sitting at home watching the TV. They get these messages all the time. It's like, we were never here, were we? That's the feeling. You know, I remember Michael Collins writing about this, about South London, you know, and he's saying, you know, white working class, his family, it's like they were never there, you know. I mean, do you see this changing at all? Do you see this kind of remaking of history changing? What would make it change?
Not really. I mean, this commissioner that they've just appointed as the Windrush Commissioner, I mean, God knows what he's going to do. But if you look at his history, he's all Black Lives Matter and you know, systemic racism. It's all that kind of woke, critical race theory stuff. So it all blends into that. So it's I don't know. To me, it seems as though we kind of defeat one thing. Like, it feels like Black Lives Matter's dead, but then it pops up with this Windrush. It just comes up in another form, doesn't it? And so you kind of, you know, you feel like you've gotten rid of it, but it's just kind of shape shifts into something else, and it's still the same old ideas, really.
But do you find yourself becoming more and more radical? I mean, do you find yourself, all right, hardening, if you like, in your attitudes? I have. There's no question.
Yeah, a bit. I would have been more, you know, I would have, if someone is saying, you know, a group of people came here and they worked hard, I would have said, oh, good for them, good on them. But now I'm a bit like, I don't care, actually. I don't want to hear about it. And
it's not absolute hostility, it's just like indifference.
No, it's just that there's such a small group of people, and actually what they brought wasn't significant. And actually what you don't hear is what we gave to them.
Right, which was much more than what they gave to us.
Exactly. They came from places where there weren't opportunities and there weren't jobs, and they were able to come here and go into professions that they wouldn't have been able to where they lived. And you never hear that when they get these groups together. They will never say about what Britain's done for them. It's always kind of us bending over backwards to say how wonderful they are, and that annoys me, actually, from that group.
That is such a good point, Amy. I mean, that absolutely encapsulates it. It's like Britain gave them much more than they ever gave to us, and that is the unpalatable truth. But if you look on the government website, this is the government's official website. When they're talking about Windrush, they have a section dedicated to Windrush, of course. They even say themselves that most Windrush migrants became bus drivers or worked in factories or worked in the NHS, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But let's not overstate it and say that they suddenly, you know, engineered, you know, London's modern
Forth Bridge.
Right, exactly. It's like, you know, they didn't build the wondrous things that we have in the city today. That is something that happened in the 1800s, and like I say, it was white working class men that did that.
I think the interesting thing is white working class men practically did it, but then of course it was Britain's middle class, whatever you like, who were the engineers who actually designed the things as well. They came from our culture. You know, when people often say, you know, oh, it's culture that matters, not the actual people, you sort of think, well, where the hell do you think that culture came from?
Right.
You know, if not from the people, you know.
And I think sometimes with this Windrush stuff, it's almost as though it's an attempt to have this group of people integrate by saying, we're going to make you part of our history. But they weren't. You can't lie. You know, and this is the problem when you have large groups of people coming over who don't have an ancestry here. How do they buy into the country? And the answer is that they never fully do, which is why they see themselves as separate. Why they want a separate commission. They want to be seen as this Windrush group still. They don't want to just say, well, we're just British. Which is how they should be. By now, 70 years, they should just say, well, we are British. But they're not saying that. They want special reparations, and they want a special commissioner, and they want a special group. So they don't want to integrate. So you have this, you know...
Sorry, Peter, you go.
Sorry, I think the bottom line, this is the bottom line I always end up at, is, you know, when we're told that these Windrush migrants built Britain, I always think, okay, even if we assume that's true, when are they going to build Africa?
Yeah.
Because Africa as a continent is still a wasteland.
Exactly.
There's nothing of note in Africa. So if they were able to build England
Yes, exactly.
in just a few years, as soon as they stepped off the boat, fabulous. But when are they going to build Africa?
They've
'Cause
benefited from our
it's not happened.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, we're actually going to carry on talking. We're going to be talking about the basis on which people vote now, because there's been all this new data coming out. That's for our exclusive members, which you must become, and then you will see the full discussion. But in the meantime, I want to thank Amy. Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter, for that. And we shall see you next week. And do remember that date on the 10th, won't you, of July. But in the meantime, I hope you have a very good week. See you next time. Our mission at the New Culture Forum is and always has been to defend and celebrate Britain's history, culture and its people, and indeed Western civilization, at a time when both are under sustained attack. We have grown from small beginnings to become the country's most influential right-leaning cultural think tank. Our content is watched and read by some of Britain's most influential political figures. But now, we need your help. If you believe in what we do, then please do become a member. For as little as £4 a month, you can make a vital contribution to what we do. As a member of the NCF family, you will help ensure that we can continue to produce quality content online, such as our 3 weekly programmes, Whittle, which is our flagship interview show, Newspeak, our panel discussion show, and Deprogrammed, which is targeted at Britain's youth. As you probably know, in addition, we produce important documentaries, such as our critically acclaimed 6-part series, The West, a stunning celebration of the history and genius of Western civilization, and our ongoing documentary series, Heresies, with hard-hitting episodes tackling subjects such as immigration, gender ideology, and BBC bias. But the New Culture Forum is much more than a YouTube channel. We don't just complain about Britain as it is, we provide real solutions and clear policies on how we can push back against the madness and restore sanity to this nation. Our presenters are now highly sought after and have become familiar faces across the media. Our prestigious annual Smith Lecture and our regional and indeed national conferences have attracted world-class speakers. Perhaps most importantly, we are the only organisation on the right of politics that has launched a national movement without actually being a political party. And uniquely, through our NCF Locals programme, we've established some 30 active branches in towns and cities right across the nation, from Edinburgh to Exeter, and with many more on the way. We're very proud of what we've achieved, and our members have made it possible. In return, our members receive access to exclusive content, invitations to private events, free or discounted tickets to our conferences and lectures, free copies of our books, and much more. I very much hope that you'll join us too by clicking the link in the description or going to our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. Now is the time that we need your help. Thank you.